When I rushed back after a long journey, my boyfriend was playing games with his friends. His ex-girlfriend lost, and the punishment was to kiss him. I stood there watching her pounce on him, watching her kiss him, and then watching Chinethan say calmly, "Don't do that again next time." In the past, I would have rushed forward without hesitation and screamed at him. But suddenly, I felt it was pointless. I booked the earliest flight to rush back and celebrate my boyfriend's birthday. To catch up on work, I stayed up all night for several days, but I was still happy. Chinethan's phone wasn't answering, so I carried the cake I made myself to the private room where he usually hangs out. The loud music drowned out the sound of me opening the door. "I don't care about you guys. If you want a kiss, go kiss Chinethan." Amber's words were tinged with a hint of playful shyness, her gaze fixed firmly on Chinethan. Chinethan's bangs fell across his forehead, obscuring his eyes, giving him a cold, indifferent expression, as if he didn't care about Amber's words at all. I froze, my hands trembling in the corner where no one could see. Amber slowly stood up, approached Chinethan, and tentatively wrapped her arms around his neck. Seeing that he didn't resist, the joy in her eyes grew more evident. The next moment, her red lips pressed against his. This scene seemed to slow down in my eyes. I wanted to step forward to stop her, but my legs couldn't move. I stared intently at Chinethan, hoping he would react. He didn't push her away. In that instant, I felt as though I had been doused with ice water from head to toe. After she finished kissing him, Chinethan said softly, "Don't do that again. I have a girlfriend. You should know better." Amber got off him, looking displeased, and muttered under her breath, "Your girlfriend is such a hassle. She's always unhappy. When we were together, I never treated you like this." Chinethan raised his eyes and gave her a warning look. "Amber. All right, I won't say anything else. Let's not ruin the mood." Amber conceded. I suddenly felt utterly bored. I turned and left, throwing the cake in the trash can with all my strength. Chinethan called, but I didn't answer. By the time he found me, I was almost asleep. The sound of a watch being taken off rang out. Chinethan, who rarely explained himself to me, said, "When did you come back? Why didn't you tell me beforehand?" I hadn't seen a few friends in a long time, so we ended up staying out late. "Don't wait for me next time. You go ahead and sleep." Seeing that I wasn't asking questions like usual, Chinethan looked at me. "I bought you your favorite pear flour cake. You can go eat it." I rolled over and said indifferently, "No, I'm not hungry." After a while, Chinethan tried to say something else. I interrupted him and suddenly said, "She kissed you, and you didn't push her away." There was no name, no build-up, but the sudden awkward silence made me know he understood. After a while, Chinethan stared at me, his tone a bit helpless. "Lila Lee, we've already moved on. We're just friends now. I can't just stand by and watch her make a fool of herself, can I? You know her temper. She's so spoiled and unreasonable. If I don't give in to her, I'm afraid she'll..." By the end, I couldn't hear what he was saying anymore, but his impatient tone was the same as always, as if I was the one being unreasonable. In the past, I would have erupted into a hysterical outburst, demanding over and over again to confirm who she really was in his heart. But this time, I gave a light laugh. "Chinethan, make up with her. I'll step back. It's just too exhausting for everyone to act like this." Chinethan's temples throbbed, and his expression darkened. "What are you talking about?" Perhaps my expression was too serious, so he slowly approached me, wrapped his arms around me, and pulled me into his embrace. "Are you still jealous of her? Haven't you had enough of her jealousy? Let's not talk about unpleasant things, okay? I didn't get to eat the cake you made today. You used to make it every year." His tone was gentle, trying to smooth over the tension between us, as if the earlier unpleasantness had been a misunderstanding. I broke free from his embrace and said expressionlessly, "I forgot it was your birthday today. If you want cake now, I'll order some delivery." Chinethan was annoyed by my coldness tonight. His patience was wearing thin, and his thin lips were tightly pursed. After a moment, he pinched the skin between his eyebrows and sighed softly, "It's my fault. I'll donate a few machines to your lab as compensation. Or is there something else you want me to buy for you?" I covered my ears. "You're too loud. I want to sleep. Chin Ethan ignored my resistance and embraced me again, gently patting my back. Sleep, sleep. A sudden ringing phone broke the momentary silence like a sharp knife. The screen flashed Amber's name, standing out starkly. Chin Ethan's body stiffened for a moment, but after a brief hesitation, he slowly let go of me and answered the call. The water pipe is leaking at home, E. I had a bit too much to drink tonight, and it's not safe for me to call a repairman alone. Could you come over and help me fix it? Please, Ethan. Amber's voice on the other end of the line was filled with pleading and helplessness. Chin Ethan didn't respond and hung up the phone quickly. I could feel his gaze fixed on me, as if he was hoping I would say something understanding like go ahead. Or perhaps he was using this moment of silence to prove how much he cared about me. The air was filled with a silent struggle, every second feeling heavy. Chin Ethan flashed a complex expression, as if struggling to suppress some unspeakable emotion. He raised his hand to touch my cheek but hesitated midway and pulled it back. Lila, I need to go check on her. As if afraid I would get angry, he added, I'll be back soon. I replied softly, my tone a little dismissive, whatever. If it's too late, you don't have to come back. I've been sleeping lightly lately and wake up easily. Chin Ethan paused for a moment, then furrowed his brow, already convinced that I was throwing a tantrum. He hurriedly grabbed his coat, but stopped at the door and turned back. Lila, she's timid. If she gets scared, her heart condition might flare up again. Please understand. There's nothing between us. Trust me. The door closed with a click, and my heart clenched painfully. Tears welled up in my eyes. All the past memories swirled in my mind. I didn't understand. If he couldn't let go of Amber, why was he with me? Amber and Chin Ethan had dated for 2 years. Later, Chin Ethan felt it was too early to marry, and since Amber was 6 years older than him, he didn't want to waste her youth, so they parted ways. Chin Ethan told me that their relationship was in the past, and if they still had feelings for each other, they wouldn't have ended up here. But every time I locked eyes with Amber, the complex, subtle challenge in her gaze seemed to tell a different story. His friends also keep bringing it up, saying that Amber is older than them and more like an older sister who watched them grow up. Even if they're not lovers, that familial bond is real, so I shouldn't dwell on it. Everyone is urging me to be more magnanimous. I tried to explain that Amber has never truly let go of him, but Chin Ethan insists that it's just my possessive imagination running wild. Even the birthday gift Chin Ethan gave me, Amber would open it first, examine it carefully, then casually say, Lila, this color might not suit you. Why don't you give it to me, and I'll ask Ethan to pick something else for you. The moment she said that, my head spun, and I instinctively reached out to grab the gift. Chin Ethan stopped me and said, Lila, since Amber likes it, just give it to her. It's just a gift. I clenched my hands tightly, refusing to let go, biting my lower lip until it bled, tasting the metallic taste of blood in my mouth. Chin Ethan's expression turned cold. Be more reasonable. Every time something like this happens, I'm told to be more reasonable. But why? I'm his girlfriend, yet I feel like the extra person here. I glared at Chin Ethan, my emotions on the verge of erupting. Amber seemed startled and quickly stuffed the gift back into my hands, saying with a hint of apology, it's my fault. I didn't realize Lila liked it so much. Don't fight because of me. That would be my fault. She continued, don't be angry. I'll drink 2 cups to make it up to you. After saying that, she raised the cup and drank it in one gulp. But when she reached for the wine again, Chin Ethan snatched the cup from her hand, his tone tinged with reproach. Enough. Your heart isn't good. Don't push yourself. Amber grabbed Chin Ethan's wrist and smiled. It's Lila's birthday today. Don't make her angry. Be careful or your girlfriend will run away. Chin Ethan rubbed his temples impatiently. Is this such a big deal? Amber leaned close to his ear and whispered something. At that moment, her collar opened slightly, almost exposing herself to my view. I couldn't take it anymore. I angrily slammed the wine glass on the table and shouted with a trembling voice, Chin Ethan. Do I need to bring you to a bed? Amber looked innocent, as if she had been wronged. Lila, you misunderstood. I was just teaching him how to comfort you. I couldn't bear to look at her hypocritical face anymore and turned to leave. Chin Ethan grabbed me tightly. Calm down. What's going on? With tears in my eyes, I stubbornly stared at Chinethan. Chinethan swallowed the words on the tip of his tongue, kicked the corner of the table, and stood up. He pressed his lips together, pulled me into his arms, and said to the people behind us, "We'll go back first. I'll pay. Have fun." Amber called out his name unwillingly from behind. Chinethan turned his head away and led me away. That time, I thought I had won Chinethan's love and was filled with joy. But the good times didn't last long. The sweet moments were as fleeting as a flower blooming in the moonlight. Amber was like an inescapable shadow, silently seeping back into our lives, appearing so frequently it was suffocating. Chinethan didn't come back last night. I tossed and turned all night, my heart pounding so hard I couldn't sleep. Finally, at dawn, I woke up from a nightmare, hearing Machi's faint, intermittent cries for help, as weak as a mosquito's buzz. I jumped out of bed and rushed to its little nest. Machi was gasping for breath, its tiny mouth open, each breath a struggle against death. I quickly opened its mouth gently, lifted its head carefully, and began performing CPR. Seeing its fragile state, my hands trembled uncontrollably. I rushed Machi to the nearest animal hospital. The vet looked serious. Its condition is very critical, especially since it was a stray cat with a genetic disorder. I sat alone outside the operating room, my mind in a complete mess. I picked up my phone and called Chinethan. No one answered the first time. I called several more times before he finally picked up. I gripped the phone tightly, trying to keep my voice calm. "Chinethan, come to the hospital. Machi is sick." On the other end, Amber's voice was hoarse. "Lila, he just fell asleep. Is it urgent? If it's urgent, I can wake him up." She continued, "He's really tired today. If it's not important, let him sleep a little longer. You'll see him later, right?" I didn't say anything and hung up the phone. Fortunately, Machi pulled through the first critical day. I hadn't eaten all day, so I ordered a bowl of hot congee for delivery, but the restaurant must not have added any salt, it had no taste at all. I mechanically swallowed each spoonful, feeling only the brief warmth from the steam in my throat, while the chill in my heart refused to dissipate. It wasn't until the following afternoon that Chinethan finally appeared before me, looking exhausted. He looked exhausted and said, "Sorry I'm late. How's Machi?" I looked up at him silently. After hearing about Machi's condition, Chinethan told me in a tone that was almost indifferent, "Lila, there's no point in trying to save Machi anymore. Let it rest in peace. It's just a stray cat. I can buy you a better one." I rushed over as soon as I got your call. Amber didn't explain clearly, so I thought you were in the hospital. Strangely, at that moment, I suddenly felt less sad. He seemed no longer important to me. I looked at the man in front of me and said firmly, "I'm going to save Machi. Its life isn't up to you. And, let's break up." Chinethan paused for a few seconds, fidgeted with his hair, and breathed heavily. "If you're angry because I didn't come home, I can explain. I haven't slept properly for 2 nights. Please don't make a scene, okay?" I shook my head. "Chinethan, the rift between us is way deeper than just one night of not coming home. I'm tired of always being forgotten by you, and I'm tired of you always abandoning me without a second thought for someone else. You can't live without her, so I'll make the decision for you. I'll let you two be together. No matter how much he hurt me before, I could still love him with all my heart. But now, I refuse to keep hurting myself anymore." Chinethan's eyes blazed with anger as he stared at me. "How many times do I have to tell you? There's really nothing between her and me. Even if we break up, I can't treat her like an enemy, can I? We've been together for so long. How could I just ignore her when she's in trouble? Can you please stop causing trouble?" She wasn't feeling well that day, and I stayed because I was worried she might be in danger. The atmosphere grew unusually tense. Chinethan seemed to realize he was losing control and quickly softened his tone. "Let's talk this out. Don't keep bringing up breaking up." He seemed convinced that as long as he bowed his head and apologized, I would love him without any reservations. I lowered my eyelashes, my voice unusually calm. "Chinethan, you said you treat her like family, like a friend, and it's okay to accept gifts from her. But what did she give you? Underwear. You'll just say I'm dirty and misinterpreting your relationship. Fine, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about something else. During holidays, the two of you play games day and night. She plays a nurturing role, always revolving around you, and that's fine. Every time you guys hang out, she can't drink but sneaks sips, and after she finishes, you have to drive her home while I take a taxi alone. Am I just a shield for the two of you? Ethan, you really disgust me. Ethan froze, a look of panic flashing across his face, and he instinctively reached out to grab my hand. I sidestepped to avoid his touch. He looked at his empty hand, his eyes filled with disbelief and anxiety, his entire body trembling slightly. Ethan's chest was filled with an indescribable bitterness as he spoke in a broken voice. Lila, I told you before, Amber's heart condition worsened because I fell into the water once, and she risked her life to save me. She was lying in the hospital bed, so fragile she seemed like she might shatter at any moment. I couldn't just leave her there. He had so much to say, but at that moment, he could only weakly explain, you must believe me. I've always slept in the guest room. There's nothing between us. I've never had any improper thoughts, and I've never considered giving up our relationship because of her. Ethan looked tense, as if he was terrified I would leave him. But his expression didn't move me. I couldn't help but laugh and asked him, Ethan, are you a doctor? Does your existence have the power to heal and save lives, more effective than medicine? I didn't miss the fleeting look of confusion and helplessness in his eyes. Before he could speak, I continued, you owe Amber a debt of gratitude. Why are you dragging me into it? Why make me endure the pain of this ambiguous, boundaryless intimacy? Why should I endure such injustice? I was raised by my parents with love and care. I'm not some parasitic plant clinging to you for survival. Ethan's expression darkened. The man who was usually so composed and in control seemed to lose his composure. Lila, calm down. Can't you feel how much I love her? Why do you always have to fixate on Amber and argue with her? Can't you understand my situation? His expression was filled with pain and guilt. I took a deep breath and looked at Ethan. A person cannot truly love two people at the same time. The emotional space for three people is too crowded. I'm willing to step back and let you two be together. Ethan suddenly grabbed my hand with such force that I could barely break free. He refused to let go, feeling that if he didn't do something, he might lose the person in front of him forever. Just then, the doctor spoke up, Machi's owner, Machi's condition is very critical. Please say your goodbyes as soon as possible. My heart sank, and I leaned against the wall to steady myself. Seeing Machi with Tubbs's body and his small chest still rising and falling slightly, tears instantly blurred my vision. Machi! I whispered, lifting my hand to tightly grasp its tiny paw. It looked at me with lingering affection, a tear rolling down the corner of its eye, then quietly ceased breathing. It had just celebrated its 3rd birthday, it was still so young. I held it close, crying so hard it felt like my heart was being torn apart. It was just a little cat, it didn't understand why its dad didn't like it, but it knew to love its mom. Ethan draped his jacket over me. Lila, say goodbye to it properly. Let it go. I've arranged for pet cremation services, they'll be here shortly. I watched as Machi was gently cleaned and prepared, until the moment it was placed into the cremation chamber. I could no longer hold back my tears and burst into uncontrollable sobs. Ethan lowered his eyelids, gently patting my back. Lila. The sudden ring of a phone interrupted his words. Ethan frowned, hung up the call, but the other party seemed unwilling to give up, persistently dialing again and again. He said, Lila, I won't leave today. I'll stay with you. He kept not answering, and the phone rang on my phone. My voice was hoarse, and I had no strength left to argue. I didn't want to disturb Machi's peace. Ethan, if you don't answer, and something happens to her, you'll blame me, and I can't take that responsibility. Besides, Machi is probably still nearby watching us. I don't want to argue with you. She's already a bit afraid of you. If we fight, I'm afraid she won't feel at ease leaving. Ethan doesn't like me this way. In his eyes, it seems like a cat is more important than him. He stared at me, saying nothing for a long time. Ethan suddenly grabbed my wrist, his fingertips turning white from the force. Lila Lee, I don't understand. You can save a stray cat that's about to die and love it so much, but why can't you be more forgiving toward her? Now you make me feel like you're breaking up with me just because of a cat. His tone was filled with confusion. Does our relationship mean less to you than a cat? I turned away angrily and slapped him hard with my other hand. Ethan, on all the nights you made me sad, it was Machi who stayed by my side. It was once a stray cat, but it's my treasure, no different from my own child. I felt so suffocated I couldn't breathe. The baby I raised with my own hands, how dare you call it a worthless stray cat? Ethan's face drained of color. When his eyes met mine, he looked as though he'd been burned, his voice trembling slightly. Lila, that's not what I meant. Ethan's eyes were filled with a hint of sorrowful pleading. Never mind, you're in a bad mood today. I'll wait for you to calm down. I'll give you time to think it over. After saying that, he hurriedly left, unsure whether he was rushing to a date or avoiding something. But none of that mattered to me anymore. I turned part of Machi's ashes into a bracelet, so it could continue to accompany me. In this lifetime, I will never adopt another cat. I checked into a hotel. That home no longer had Machi's companionship, returning there was pointless. All night long, Ethan kept sending me WeChat messages updating me on his whereabouts, almost to the point of live streaming his movements for me to watch in real time. I also came across a post Amber had shared on her moments. In the photo, she was smiling happily, with a figure busy in the kitchen behind her. She was making a V sign with her hands, looking utterly content. The caption read, "Having you here is so wonderful." The scene was warm and beautiful, but it stung my eyes. So that's why he was in such a hurry to go there, to cook a meal for Amber. This relationship is truly over. Even Machi, who had always been by my side, is gone. I clutched the bracelet tightly, curling up into a ball, as if only that could bring me a shred of warmth. When I opened my eyes again, I saw Ethan sitting by my bedside. Lila Lee, you're awake? He turned to me, his eyes filled with concern. Your phone wasn't answering, so I came looking for you. He placed his hand on my forehead again to check my temperature. You have a high fever and were talking in your sleep. I couldn't wake you up no matter how hard I tried, and I couldn't get the medicine down either. If you didn't wake up, I was going to take you to the hospital. For a moment, I felt disoriented, almost thinking I had returned to the way we used to be. I looked at him, my mind foggy from the fever, and said softly, "Go do what you need to do. I don't need you here." Ethan's fingers tightened and relaxed. He carefully tucked the blanket around me, his voice choked with emotion. "Where else can I go?" His dejected expression made him look almost pitiful. I pulled away from him, looked at him seriously, and said, "I'm not joking. I really want to break up." Ethan seemed not to hear me, continuing to explain on his own, "I know you're unhappy because of her. I went to see her to clarify things. Lila, I don't want to break up with you." His fingertips trembled slightly, and his expression grew tense. "If there's anything else you're unhappy about, I can change. Please forgive me. I'll try to see Amber less often and keep in touch with her friends less, okay?" I found it laughable. He wasn't ignorant, he'd been indulging himself all along. His eyes were red, as if tears were about to fall. I'd never seen him this vulnerable before. My voice was soft. "Ethan, this relationship has lost all meaning. Before, I was the one desperately trying to explain myself to you, but now you're the one constantly explaining. I don't want to hear it anymore. Why should I continue to be with you? What reason do you have to keep me? Is it your lack of boundaries, or the complicated relationships around you? You've already worn away most of the beauty we once had." As I spoke, my nose grew sore, feeling wronged that the emotions I had invested hadn't been reciprocated. "Ethan, you always stand on your own side, saying I'm immature and inconsiderate. If I had a close friend like that, how would you feel? You can't empathize because it hasn't happened to you, right? You just want to enjoy the thrill of ambiguity without any guilt, right?" My gaze, calm as usual, seemed to be filled with tears, making him feel flustered and unsure of himself, even unable to meet my eyes. Ethan shook his head helplessly, his guilt evident in his eyes. "Lila, it's not like that. I never intended to betray you. I've caused you pain, hit me if you want." He grabbed my hand and slapped it against his face, stubbornly saying, "Hit me to vent your anger. I'll change." He might not have realized how humiliating his posture was at that moment. I could feel his regret, but all I felt was overwhelming fatigue. In this relationship, I have nothing to be ashamed of. I pulled my hand back. I no longer trust you. Ethan, my head hurts badly, and I don't want to see you. Leave. I'll give you my address later, and you can send my things there. Ethan froze in place, saying weakly, Lila, rest well. He fled in disarray. Ethan drove home like a madman, nearly causing an accident along the way. The words of Lila Lee echoed in his mind, what do you have to keep me here? If he had thought before that she was just being petty, now he felt that he might truly lose her. His heart raced, aching slightly, tugging at every nerve in his body. He had to get home quickly, maybe there was still a chance to salvage things. Amber arrived first. Ethan was frantically searching through his belongings at home, too preoccupied to respond to Amber's questions. When she pressed him, she learned that Ethan was trying to win back Lila Lee. Amber was stunned. She couldn't understand why Ethan wouldn't let go after things had reached this point. She stared at Ethan in disbelief, her emotions growing more intense. Ethan, you've changed. You used to be so rational in love. What are you doing now? She's just a woman. If she's gone, she's gone. Is it really worth this? Ethan froze for a moment, burying his face in his hands and whispering, no, I can't live without her. Amber's eyes began to well up with tears. She stared intently at Ethan, as if she could bore a hole through him. Ethan, I won't allow this. Her voice was filled with resentment. Why can you so easily give up on the 2 years we spent together, yet you can't forget her? Ethan met Amber's gaze and pleaded, Amber, stop this. I really don't feel like arguing with you right now. Anger had clouded Amber's judgment. She pushed Ethan away forcefully, grabbed the handmade doll on the bedside table, and without hesitation, cut it into pieces with scissors. Amber! What are you doing? Ethan rushed forward to stop her, feeling a surge of indescribable pain. Amber sneered, you've told me not to do so many things before, but you ended up allowing them all, didn't you? A heavy silence spread through the room. Ethan looked at her in disappointment and said, Amber, just go. Leave here. Looking at the scattered pieces of cloth on the ground, Ethan's heart ached. He trembled as he reached out to pick something up, not even noticing the sound of the door closing. In his frantic search, he accidentally discovered a note, Ethan, I love you so much. I wonder, now that you've discovered this secret, have we gotten married? Ethan felt as though his mind had exploded. He remembered that when he was making the handmade doll, Lila Lee had sent him away for a while. Was she doing this all along? Ethan lowered his head, his lips trembling. To escape those unpleasant memories, I threw myself into my experiments, working tirelessly. It wasn't until my mentor gently reminded me to look in the mirror that I realized my face had turned pale. My mentor gave me a day off to rest. Just as I was about to immerse myself in the library in the afternoon, a figure caught my eye. He stood in the middle of the road, his gaze slowly turning toward me. The usually calm and composed him now had red veins in his eyes, a hint of stubble on his lips, and looked utterly exhausted and sorrowful. As he took steps toward me, I instinctively turned to leave. Ethan quickly stepped forward to block me, his voice tinged with tension and urgency. You don't want to see me at all? Why are you leaving? I furrowed my brows. Why should I see you? We've already broken up. Don't you understand? Ethan refused to let go of me. I broke free from his grip and looked at him calmly. Ethan, what are you doing? When I loved you, you hurt me. Now that I don't love you anymore, you're still clinging to me. There are other men in the world. I've already suffered enough. Life is long. I will find someone who sees only me. Ethan tightly grabbed the hem of my shirt, his voice humble and pleading, I'm sorry. Don't abandon me. His eyes welled up with tears as he hesitated before speaking, Lila, I truly love you. Please give me another chance, okay? He looked like a child who had done something wrong, begging me to forgive him over and over again. I looked into his tear-filled eyes and said in a calm voice, suppressing my emotions, Ethan, I don't want to get involved in your complicated relationship anymore. What good does it do to regret it now? Let's part ways amicably. Every time I think about Amber's secret photos showing off her love, I feel sick. Chin Ethan's eyes dimmed instantly. Lila, it's my fault, I'm the one who's wrong. You can punish me however you want. I really miss you. Let's make up, okay? After you started your graduate studies, you were always busy with your experimental data. Every time I called you, you could only talk for 10 minutes before hanging up. I didn't know who was more important to you. He had never shared these feelings of confusion and sadness with me. If we had been honest with each other and clarified our feelings earlier, perhaps we wouldn't have ended up like this. I remained silent for a long time. Chin Ethan bit his lip, his throat dry and hoarse. Lila Lee, at first I just wanted to make you angry, to make you care more about me. But even if I didn't say good night or good morning to you, you wouldn't notice. I reduced the frequency of our calls, but you didn't know how to comfort me. I really get tired too. Lila Lee, but I've realized my mistake. I really was wrong. Seeing that I remained unmoved, he pulled out a card from his pocket. It was the forgiveness card I had once given him. His voice grew softer. Lila Lee, look, I haven't lost any of the things we once shared. Can you forgive me for its sake? A crumpled card lay in his hand, the words on it clearly visible. Unconditional forgiveness voucher. In recognition of Chin Ethan's heroic injuries sustained while protecting Lila Lee, his deep affection is self-evident. Lila Lee hereby issues this voucher. Upon presentation of this voucher, Chin Ethan may request Lila Lee to forgive any of his mistakes, and Lila Lee shall comply. Date, July 17th, XX year. My eyelids trembled slightly. I forced myself to stand straight and remain calm, digging my fingertips into the palm of my hand to hold back the tears threatening to fall. Chin Ethan looked almost pleading. He said hoarsely, please, Lila Lee. To find it, I ran a red light driving home. Do you know that? When I found it, the fear that had been enveloping me finally subsided. I know I'm despicable and shameless, but we clearly can't live without each other. I took a deep breath and took the ticket. Looking up at the scar on the corner of Ethan Chen's eye, my heart ached. At that time, I had just graduated from college, and we were traveling in another province. That evening, after watching the light show, we were heading back to the hotel. I insisted on wearing high heels because I wanted to look nice, but I accidentally twisted my ankle at the intersection. Chin Ethan helped me sit down on the steps and went to buy some medicine. Just as he left, a group of drunk men approached me. They spoke in a lewd manner and even started touching me. I screamed for help, but they grew more aggressive. Chin Ethan heard my screams and rushed back immediately, disregarding everything else. He picked up a stone from the ground and started fighting with them. He fought with all his strength, grappling with several of them, but he was quickly overpowered. They surrounded him, punching and kicking him. Two of them even held him up while another humiliated him by hitting his face. The blows kept coming, and I screamed in despair. I tried to call for help from nearby people, but there was no one around. Watching him being attacked, I wanted to rush over to save him, but they swung their arms and knocked me to the ground. The sound of my ankle breaking echoed in my ears, and the pain made me see stars. Chin Ethan saw I was injured and glared at the bald man who had hit me. He charged forward and landed a punch on his temple. Two others tried to stop him, but he endured their attacks while keeping his eyes fixed on the bald man. His brows were furrowed with determination, and his relentless attacks scared the drunken men away. I struggled to get up, looking at the man lying on the ground, barely alive, my head buzzing. Chin Ethan, stop fighting. Please stop. Listen to me, please stop. Chin Ethan's face was covered in blood. He heard my words and stopped moving, but before he could speak, he fainted. On the way to the hospital, I thought to myself, this is probably the end of my life. He's the only one for me. During Chin Ethan's recovery, his parents found out about us but didn't take a clear stance. They just used their influence to punish those thugs. Seeing him lying in the hospital bed, I felt incredibly guilty. Every time I secretly wiped away my tears, Chin Ethan noticed. Later, he came up with an idea. He wanted me to give him a forgiveness voucher as a reward for saving me. I cried and agreed, thinking that he loved me so much he was willing to risk his life for me. How could I not forgive him for a small mistake? He was the one who was beaten half to death yet still protected me. He was the one who, with blood on his head, still comforted me to ease my worries. I couldn't understand why two such good people had ended up in this situation. I stared at him, my consciousness slowly returning from a daze, then my eyelids slowly lowered, and tears fell without warning. I wanted to say harsh words to him, to tell him to leave immediately. Chin Ethan held back his tears and whispered, "Lila Lee, don't abandon me." He looked so humble, as if my words could be the final blow to crush him. I remained silent for a moment before finally speaking. "Chin Ethan, I need time to sort out my thoughts. The pain you caused cannot be erased with a simple apology. You never truly considered my feelings before making those decisions. Chin Ethan, don't push me anymore. Give me space to breathe and think." Chin Ethan said nothing more, just stood there silently watching my departing figure, motionless for a long time. I buried my head in the pillow, searching for a shred of comfort and security. He was my first love, all the beautiful memories of my youth were connected to him. Denying him felt like denying myself. I also didn't know if forgiving him would betray the version of myself who had silently endured the pain all those days. But no matter how rationally I analyzed it, the scales of my emotions still tilted toward Chin Ethan. Despite my repeated avoidance, Chin Ethan still came to my school every week without fail, always bringing my favorite pear flour cakes. Even when I made excuses about having experiments to do in no time, he would wait silently outside the dormitory building all day. The anniversary of my grandmother's passing arrived, and I set off on the journey home. As I pushed open the familiar red-lacquered gate, Chin Ethan's figure stood in the courtyard. He silently helped me tidy up the long uninhabited house without saying a word. Though the old house had been cleaned, it still bore the marks of time and an indescribable sense of heaviness. Before my grandmother's spirit tablet, I lit incense with reverence. The old lady had worked hard all her life and, even in her old age, refused to be a burden on her children, passing away alone in the old house. She didn't live to see me fulfill my filial duties. Perhaps because of today's vulnerability and sadness, when Chin Ethan wrapped his arms around my shoulders, I didn't refuse. The front door suddenly burst open with a forceful push, accompanied by a rush of wind, and Amber walked in with a smile. Her gaze was like a sharp sword, darting back and forth between the two of us. Chin Ethan shielded me behind him, his voice tense. "Amber, what do you want? If it's because you feel I owe you something, whether it's money or shares, I'm willing to give it all to you. Just please don't intrude into my life anymore. Don't disrupt everything." Amber stared into his eyes, a bitter smile curving her lips, as if recalling the past. "Ethan, do you remember? When you were 6, you said you'd take me home to be your bride. At 10, you swore before your parents that you'd marry me. At 17, you begged me to wait for you with tears in your eyes. At 20, you held my hand tightly and promised to give me a lifetime of happiness. But your lifetime lasted only 2 short years, yet you've trapped me." At this point, Amber's emotions finally broke down, and tears streamed down her face like broken beads. Her smile turned bitter. "Chin Ethan, I can't live without you. You can't just leave me like this." Suddenly, her expression turned resolute. "If you don't want to, don't save me." Before she could finish speaking, Amber reached into her handbag, pulled out a bottle of pills and a bottle of water, and swallowed them without hesitation. Chin Ethan's face turned deathly pale, and he shouted hoarsely, "Amber, have you lost your mind?" Amber's body began to slump helplessly, eventually collapsing to the ground. Chin Ethan instinctively wanted to rush forward, but his feet froze in place. He looked at me helplessly, his eyes filled with panic and pleading. "I have a girlfriend. You should have some self-control." Chin Ethan's eyes were red, and he walked past me dejectedly, each step heavy. His mind was numb, but his heart ached as if it would burst. The lump in his throat felt like a desperate cry, tearing him apart. At that moment, we understood each other without words. From then on, there was no possibility between us. The strings that once bound me like a kite had finally snapped completely. Perhaps love truly isn't worth it. He turned back to look at me one last time, his eyes hollow and vacant, like an empty shell devoid of a soul. A single tear silently slid down the corner of his eye. Chin Ethan never came to bother me again. Later, I heard bits and pieces about him from friends. I heard that the bottle of pills Amber swallowed caused significant damage to her already sensitive and fragile heart. Now, she must carefully maintain emotional stability to survive. This sudden turn of events is like a chain of fate, tightly binding Ethan and Amber together, making it difficult for him to break free. His parents have adopted a child from a collateral branch of the family as their new heir. Meanwhile, I am currently in distant Europe. Here, I am fully immersed in a quantum computing research project, continuing to pursue my passion. Every day, I deal with various data and algorithms. Though busy, my heart is filled with a sense of fulfillment and peace. Now, I only hope that I can continue to move forward on the path of scientific research.